And we're rolling. Hello. It is Monday, April 19th, 2021, and here is your reading. To review your question, you are trying to choose between two colleges. You are trying to choose between UC Berkeley and UC San Diego. And right now, you're just not in a place where it's obvious to you which one is going to be the best decision for you. So we're going to take a look at the situation from three different aspects. We're going to look at the academics. We're going to look at the social aspect of college. And then we're going to look at the locations themselves, where these schools are. So let's get started. Actually, you know what? I want to do a little digression because I believe this is your I think you're new to tarot, but I also think this might be your first tarot reading ever. So I'm going to take a little extra time to explain what's going on. But I'm going to digress initially just because I have a show and tell item here, which is the Heindel Tarot. I bought this. This is the first tarot deck I ever bought. And I bought it in Berkeley, since UC Berkeley is on your list. I think it was like my junior year of high school, which would have been 1990, 1991, around there. And my best friend and I took a trip to Berkeley, and I guess we were checking it out. And I bought that from Games of Berkeley, which was on Shattuck. I think it was like a block north of the main entrance to the BART station. On the western side of Shattuck in those days. I think it still exists, but it's in a new location. But anyway, just a little digression there. Not the best deck for reading tarot with, by the way, but I love the artwork and it was a beautiful deck. But in any case, so I've got all sorts of cards here. And that 9-digit number that you gave me, what I did is I ran some numerology on it in order to use it to draw cards from these decks for you on your behalf. And I feel like that's a great way to bring you into the reading. Now, the tarot cards are down here. I shuffled everything in advance because it's not interesting to watch someone shuffle cards. But the tarot cards are down here. And then I have two oracle decks that I use at the beginning of readings just to kind of set the tone and to make it a little more interesting. So the tarot card I pulled for you, the three numbers that I came up with to draw the cards were 46, 16, and 40. So 46, 16, and 40. So in addition to using those numbers to draw the cards for you, just kind of put them in the back of your mind for the next week or two as you're trying to come to your decision and see if they come up in another way in your life. So 16, because it's less than 31, it could be a calendar day. So if something happened on the 16th, if something is going to happen on the 16th, if one of the college's deadlines is on the 16th, something like that. Or if someone's birthday is on the 16th, since you might be getting advice from various people. Maybe take special note of that, okay? And the other two, 46 and 40, those can't be months or days as a part of the year, but you know, someone might maybe who was born in 1946 or 1940 might be giving you some advice. Maybe pay a little extra special attention to them. Someone who is 40 years old or 46 years old might be giving you advice. What else? Like something might arrive in the mail, or something that you got in the mail from one of these schools might have had 46 cents postage or something like that, right? Just see if these numbers manifest in your life in some way. Now, the tarot card here, by the way, the tarot deck that we're using is called the Smith-Waite Centennial Tarot. It's my favorite deck, so we're going to use that one for this reading. It's the classic 1909 images that kind of revolutionized tarot from the medieval system. And this card, I like to use it to sum up the reading, so we're just going to put that aside for now and save that till the very end. And then these two decks I like to use to set the tone. What we're looking at is, this is actually two decks mixed together. It is the Goddesses and Sirens and Gods and Titans decks from Stacey DeMarco, and the illustrator is Jimmy Manton. He's my favorite Oracle deck illustrator. I just like his artwork. And then this deck only came out like 2 weeks ago. It's called The Shaman's Dream Oracle by Alberto Villoldo and Colette Baron-Reid. I saw Alberto Villoldo talk at a conference once. He's really cool. He's an actual shaman. So these are really cool cards too, and I like them. I like the artwork. So let me move some of this stuff out the way, and we'll get to it. So let's see. Okay. So to set the tone, you've got power. So what I'm thinking is, in terms of the school selection, we should be looking for things or watchwords or any sort of aspect of the schools that will put you into a place of power. And you'll have to think about what power means to you, whether power means the power to make your own decisions, the power to be independent, the power over your course of study, whatever power means to you. I'm trying to think, like, I usually do readings for people who are significantly older than you are. So not someone who's like a teenager, basically making a big life decision. So I'm trying to think of, from the perspective of a teenager, what power might mean. But in any case, think about what power means to you and then use that in order to inform your selection. You know, that should be an important aspect where you'll feel in your power. Now, the Shaman's Dream Oracle, this is kind of disappointing. You got the Cosmic, and actually it's white on white, so it might be hard to see. The Cosmic Womb, the Divine Feminine. I said this is disappointing because what this card is about, the Cosmic Womb and the Divine Feminine, wombs give birth to things, right? So it's basically, it's pointing to the fact that this is, you know, you're at a time that basically you're kind of, you're not rebirthing, you're kind of being born anew. You're making a transformation, like the way the caterpillar dies and is reborn a butterfly. So it's that sort of incubation period where you're starting a new life in essence, right? And I kind of said it was boring because, like, duh, you're going into college, right? So that is a huge step in life, and this is where you cast off your old identity from high school and you build a new identity in college. I think the one important aspect of this, in combination with power too, would be that where is it that this you can best build your new identity and who you want to be, because now you can leave all of your baggage behind, because, you know, we aren't born into this world with baggage. We're born, you know, kind of naked and slimy. So so think about that in terms of the decision making as well. So I'm gonna move that off to the side. So now I'm going to start pulling some tarot cards for you, and I'm going to look at the general situation first before we get to the specifics. Okay. These are great cards. Okay, so we've got, oh, and by the way, a reversal is when a card comes out upside down. So two of your cards came up upside down, and everybody reads them differently. The way I personally read a reversal is that it's an indicator of blocked energy. Blocked energy would be something takes longer than expected. Something's like a tough slog, it's a pain in the ass, or it's just like more burdensome than you would expect. Something like that. Once in a while, the card takes on the opposite of what its meaning would normally be, but technically all cards have a light and a dark side, like a positive and a negative side to them. So both of those elements are always there. So, you know, in any case, it looks like you're coming from a place of, you know, just overall good fortune, but there have been some hardships. So the Wheel of Fortune, that card is all about, it's kind of like, you know, The Price is Right on television, if you've ever seen that show, where you spin the Wheel of Fortune and then things come your way. I think some things, however, were harder than anticipated to get you where you are. So, you know, the Wheel of Fortune has brought you on a journey where you've been accepted to two schools in the University of California system, which is an amazing blessing. You know, the Wheel of Fortune does bring blessings to people. This is a very positive card. I think that some of the aspects of that have maybe been harder for you or took longer than you would have expected or whatever. But I don't know if that's saying a whole lot, because like teenage years are hard, right? So now, present moment, I feel like you're in a space where you are now kind of reaping the rewards of everything that you've built. So this card is in the Nine of Pentacles. It's a woman who is surrounded by coins, basically, and she has some riches at her disposal, right? So she's well off. You're a young person, so this is not going to be literal riches in the bank, but this, I believe, would be like reaping all of the seeds that you've planted. There's a bittersweet aspect to this card too. If you look right here, there's like a tiny little snail in the front, in the corner. And the other salient feature of like the bittersweetness is that, you know, she's standing in front of all this, like a wall that's covered in grapevines, basically. So although this woman has Achieved a lot of success. I always think that the bittersweetness of it is that she has gotten a little bit isolated. So in order to get where she is, like from an interpersonal perspective, there's been some sort of isolation, whether it has been, maybe losing some friends, or, not having had a relationship when she might have wanted a relationship. So she's made sacrifices to get where she is, even though she's now sitting pretty. So it's acknowledging all of that sacrifice, or the things that are not present, which were sacrificed in order to have the good fortune, which is good. I would say that your financial situation is probably pretty good right now too, because like the literal meaning of coins has to do with money. All of the pentacles have to do with things on the material plane. Oh, you're new to tarot. Each suit, there's 4 suits in tarot, and each of the suits has to do with a certain sort of energy of things. So pentacles have to do with the material plane. So it's things like money, wealth, home, like your ability to pay the rent, the ability to feed and clothe yourself, Maslow's needs, those sorts of things. By the way, the other 2 cards are not in the 4 suits. These are called major arcana cards, and those are, there's 22 of those, and there's 54 of the other cards in the deck. The major arcana cards come up more for major milestones in your life, and for when you ask a question, maybe not as significant as this. This is obviously a milestone in your life, but major arcana cards often kind of will inform the person asking a question, the querent, that, hey, this question you're asking, this is going to be one of those moments in life when you look back and you're going to see that it was a major decision. Clearly, that's kind of goes without saying for this sort of thing. Anyway, that's kind of the present moment. Where you're headed, the Lovers. So the Lovers is another major arcana card, another major card. So the Lovers, sometimes it actually does mean relationships, right? It does mean like romantic relationships. It is basically, the image of it is of a kind of a wedding performed by an angelic figure, an archangel. But there are other completely non-romantic aspects of this card too, because you're not always asking about that sort of stuff. So the basic definition of the Lovers is contracts, because at the time the tarot was created in medieval times, if you could afford paper, you were rich. And if you were getting married when you were rich, you weren't getting married for love. You were getting married because, oh, we're going to combine your father's kingdom and my kingdom, or I want your dowry, or we're going to put these 2 parcels of land together through marriage and create a big ass farm, or things like that. So one of the basic definitions of Lovers is a contract, right? So so this contract could be basically, well, I guess accepting a college offer is a contract. So I think this could just be stating the obvious. It could also mean that in some way there's going to be some sort of romantic connection wherever you're headed in the near future. So that's another thing to look out for. It could just be the sort of the that you're about to sign a contract with people, right? For financial aid, and for joining their institution. So, but again, a major decision in your life. So that was kind of disappointing actually, but, let me just make my computer not sleep and look at my notes. And I think now let's look at the 2 schools. So what I'll do is I'm going to draw 6 cards. We're going to put UC Berkeley over here, B, and then San Diego over here, S. And we'll look at, I'll draw 6 cards, and I'll draw 3 for Berkeley, 3 for San Diego, and we'll look at each of the 3 aspects that you wanted to explore for each of the schools. So we'll look at the, how did I write them down? I wrote them down: academic, social, and then location. So we'll look at that for Berkeley, and then we'll look at that for San Diego. And I'm going to try to keep them in that order so I don't get confused as we do the reading. So let me draw those 6. Okay, so I'm going to flip them all. Okay. So what I think I'll do is I'll talk about each of the topics together, and then compare and contrast each topic rather than going through all three and then going through all three. So let's look at Berkeley versus San Diego in terms of academics. So academics on the Berkeley side, you have the Eight of Pentacles. That's interesting. Sometimes this has meaning. It happens to form a sequence with one of the ones we talked about before because you've got the 9 right there. So the Eight of Pentacles is, it's all about working diligently. It's about perfecting your craft. So I feel like the academics at Berkeley are going to require a lot of hard work. But they're going to match up with your desire as to what you want to learn. I should cover the suits a little bit too, so that you understand the contrast. So like, the pentacles are about the material plane. The cups are about things like emotions, romance, love, water. They're the suit of water. These are the suit of earth. Wands, when they come up, that's the suit of fire. That's the suit of your passions, your desire, your will. So the suit of wands has to do with the fire inside you, and it means, I'll get to that in a minute. And then I'm just going to finish up with the swords. Since you have a sword up here. Swords are about air and the mind. So they're about mental things. They're about thoughts. They're about ideas. And also it's also about kind of your mental health. It's about things like depression and anxiety and things like that, because when thoughts kind of go overboard and build up, they turn into things like anxiety and depression. So that's kind of the overview of the suits since you're new to tarot. But so to get back to this one, so over here, I feel like the course of study at Berkeley looks like it's going to align with what you want to accomplish in life, what you want to work on. And this card is also indicating that you're going to have to work very hard. This is not to say that you wouldn't have to work hard if you went to San Diego, right? But it's highlighting that as a part of the features. It's just going to be a lot of hard work. I kind of see you like spending a lot of hours in the library toiling at Berkeley, and that kind of being the tone, the academic tone over there. Because he's just kind of hammering. He's basically making pentacles in the image here, and he's just kind of hammering it out. But generally, this card is thought of it. He's pleased to be working on what he's working on, right? So there's an alignment. So what the work that you will have to do is going to be aligned with where you want to go, with what you want to study. So that in that aspect, it's good. Now, I think the contrast over here, it's the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands is all about. There's two basic meanings. There's the meaning of speed, and then there's focus. So if you look, there's 8 wands flying through the sky. They're hurtling like projectiles, missiles, something like that. And it's on the energy of passion. It's on the wavelength of passion and desire and your will, basically. So I think things at San Diego will move very quickly, and they will be on target. So, there'll be something where there'll be something precise about San Diego where it really lines up with your goals. Like there's like a bullseye aspect to San Diego in terms of academics. So I don't know if that means that like the course of study somehow perfectly aligns with something that you want to do. Like maybe there might be some electives, or there might be an extra certificate you can get, or just something like that where it's like, wow, that's like spot on. Like everything that I wanted to study in order to accomplish what I want to do in life, there will be some sort of like really spot on aspect over there, right? And you'll have to kind of weigh how important that is to you. Cause like, I'm sure your parents have told you this, but like, a lot of people, whatever they major in college, they end up going to do something completely different, So like someone might major in Spanish and then become a computer programmer, right? So it's like this whole on target thing may or may not have a huge bearing on your long-term life plan. But the other aspect, the other aspect of this card too, I feel like in terms of academics, there will be alignment with your passion since it is just wands, period. so like your will, your passions. Oh, and one of the contrasts between pentacles and wands is that when a wand comes up, it often means that if it has to do with something that you're working on, like your job, or like if you're farther into adulthood, like just work and career and stuff like that. Pentacles, when it has to do with work and career, means it's like it's work for the sake of work so that you can get paid and pay your bills. Wands, when they come up for work, are more of an indicator. It's like, well, the work that you're doing is like, it's fully aligned with your passions and your desires. So it's the kind of job where it's like, it doesn't feel so much like work because you love doing it so much. And it's like one of those stereotypical things where people will say like, I love this so much, I would do it even if I didn't get paid for it, which is kind of bullshit, but also, it's like, but I think that does ring true for people, or people who volunteer, for instance, and who don't need to work. So alignment with passions here. The speed aspect too, academics, I don't know, that this might mean that if, this course of study over here gets you out in 4 years, maybe you can get out of San Diego in 3.5, or maybe Berkeley's 5 years, San Diego's only 4, right? I don't, maybe this is combined with a master's, this, something like that. I don't know. So it could be that you could get just through your academic program in fewer semesters or trimesters or whatever they use these days. That can be an indicator that the actual length of the program might be shorter over here. So, and that actually might be something you can verify, just by the course catalogs, like working out a schedule, all the units and stuff like that. That might actually be research you can do on a pros and cons list prior, and not just kind of taking that on faith. So that's the academic. Make my computer wake up. The next one was social, right? To not I lost my train of thought. Anyway, so social, I feel like Sandy, well, these are both kind of up and down cards. These are not like, neither one of these to me is assuredly, I can say assuredly, like the social situation at one of these schools is going to be far better than the other, because they're both just kind of like normal run of the mill cards. They're both like minor arcana cards in the kind of the middle of the numeric sequence and whatnot. So you have on the Berkeley side for social life, you have the four of Pentacles. This can mean a couple of things. It could just mean that this is the basic name for this card is the miser card. So someone who's like tight-fisted with money. So I mean, it could just be stating that social activities in Berkeley are expensive. So it's like, you're gonna have to manage your money really well at Berkeley in order to have a social life, or maybe just the amount of money that you have at your disposal, like your disposable income, maybe that will be, you're just going to have to be parsimonious with it in order to survive social life at Berkeley. The other way we can look at this card, miser, we can apply the concept of a miser metaphorically to all sorts of social aspects, right? So the first thing I actually thought of when I saw the card was that it might be that people at Berkeley, because institutions have like a culture, they're kind of like an organism, and they're all different. I wonder if you at Berkeley, there's going to be something where people are not so forthcoming with their friendship for whatever reason. Like I feel like this could be people who are like clinging to things, right? That to me indicates a clique. And this guy doesn't look like, he's kind of grumpy. He's also isolated. So one of the things that, because if you're a miser, you kind of have to isolate yourself from the rest of society. So you can see him large in the foreground and you can see the cityscape in the background. He's far removed from everybody else. So I feel like, there's definitely an indicator that there could be a little bit of isolation at Berkeley for whatever reason. And maybe that isolation is because you're stuck in the library studying all the time because you got to work so damn hard, right? But it also could be, it might not be about you, it might be about the culture of the school. It could be that it's going to be hard to make friends there because people are in cliques, or whatever groups exist there. It might be hard to make an inroad into the social scene there. Now, by contrast, you've got the Seven of Cups over here on the San Diego side for the social aspect of the school. Now, my pet name for this card is Spoiled for Choice. There's these 7 cups. They're all filled with all of these images. What the images actually mean, I don't think is really important in this type of reading. This is one of the few cards where the figure in the card. Actually, I think it's the only one. I think it's the only card where the person's back is to us, so that might be significant too. But I look at this as the spoiled for choice cards. There's like so many decisions that it's like a smorgasbord, right? There's the other aspect of that card could be being, because his back is to the viewer, it could be like taken aback or somehow being overwhelmed. The cups are about emotions, the suit of water. So it could be that like there's some sort of emotional overwhelm because there's just so much social stuff going on at San Diego that, you know, it's like, you're just like, whoa, and you have to take a step back. That being said, you know, these are just kind of like, when you land at the school, what are you going to find? So long term, you know, you're a human, you're going to be able to work through whatever you find at either of these schools. But it might be useful to kind of figure out, well, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with flying solo. I'm a strong individual, and like, you know what, fuck it if like I try to join a sorority and they kick me out, or, you know, whatever that, this sort of like, this isolation or cliquishness or whatever the hard inroads, whatever this is kind of at Berkeley, you know, maybe you don't care. Or maybe if you're fine with that, or maybe you're used to that based on your current social situation. I don't know. This, on the other hand, I feel like it could be just as much. This could, you know, like when you have a smorgasbord at your disposal, it could actually distract you from academics. That could be a part of the speed, this kind of the speed thing over here where things are kind of moving too fast. Moving too fast can mean hard to keep up. So if you look at these two things in tandem, will it be hard to keep up with the academics because things maybe are moving too fast? Because this is about speed, because there's so much social shit like that is like, you know, every time you walk into the dining hall, there's a flyer for something else that you're really interested in trying to do. Is it going to be kind of that sort of thing, you know? So something to be aware of. That being said, basically, you'll have to interpret it kind of based on what you saw and what you know, and knowing who you are. But yeah, I feel like a lot of choices might be taken aback by the number of choices, might be emotionally overwhelming because there's like an undercurrent of emotion with the cups. And that's what I'll say about the social aspect. And then we said location. It's interesting to get a court card for a location. But anyway, so there's this is your first court card. So these correspond to like the jacks, kings, and queens in playing cards and whatnot. There's 16 of them in tarot. So you got the Queen of Swords for there, for Berkeley in terms of the location. And then you have got the Six of Cups for, and it's upside down, the Six of Cups for the location of San Diego. I'm just going to kind of say off the bat, I feel like these are really even. I feel like location, we'll talk about the different aspects, but I feel like just in terms of the pure meanings of these cards, I kind of feel like they're on an even keel. Neither one of them is like shouting to me like, oh, location over here, this is the one, right? So the Queen of Swords is a location in terms of Berkeley. The Queen of Swords is special because she has butterflies on her crown. She's wearing this golden crown of butterflies. There's also a butterfly, how do you call it, in the relief of the throne that she's sitting on. So there's a transformative aspect of the location here. Butterflies are about transformation. I think earlier I mentioned that there's the caterpillar that turns into the butterfly. So when cards have butterflies in them in tarot, they often indicate that there's going to be a transformative aspect. So something about this location would be transformative to you. The basic meaning of the card, however, we talked about how swords have to do with thought and ideas. So I think location-wise, Berkeley is going to be steeped in thought and ideas. Basically, you can look at that in terms of philosophy. You can look at that in terms of literal books. You can look at it as the history of the place, right? All of the protests that happened in the 60s in Sproul Plaza. The campus, I think, goes back to just after the Civil War, around then, you know. So there's a lot of ideas and history there, and a lot of things that are fulminating there. So the queen aspect of this card is that there is mastery. So kings and queens in tarot have to do with a mastery of the energy of the suit. Now the king is being a man. This plays on gender stereotypes. So kings tend to rule with an iron fist, and they get mastery over brute force and whatever masculine stereotype. Queens, however, queens in tarot are said to have mastery over their domain, in this case swords, but the mastery is, it's feminine. It's basically like, kind of, if you're a queen, what you're doing is you are kind of stepping back. You're taking everything in. You're making an informed decision, and you're not making a rash decision. You're not using toxic masculinity. You're not grunting like a gorilla and like asserting masculinity and dominance and stuff like that. You're kind of stepping back. And this is kind of a yin-yang sort of relationship. So the opposite of what the man does is kind of like, a woman takes her time in making the decision, calculates, and the other aspect for this is there's a nurturing aspect to women, because mothers nurture stereotypically. Men are not the nurturing ones stereotypically. And of course, like, in reality, you can do whatever the fuck you want, but So anyway, so basically Queen of Swords, for a location, it's like a place where ideas, you can gain mastery over knowledge, and the place itself nurtures that. So the highlighting thing about the location is the nurturing people so that they can have mastery over ideas and thought and philosophy and all of those things. Honestly, not as exciting, well, not super exciting about a location for a message to get, but I guess maybe that's the vibe. That's the vibe on the campus of Berkeley. That's what it's all about. Now that kind of resonates with this card over here, where it's just kind of like hardworking knowledge, like making harder social inroads. So I feel like Berkeley, I mean, if you kind of sum up all three, Berkeley's about the books. Berkeley's about the school and just learning and stuff like that for you when you go there, the energy of you with the place. On the other hand, the location of San Diego, this is the Six of Cups, and the basic kind of moniker for this card is it's the nostalgia card. You see that there's two children in the card, young. There is, the boy is offering a chalice filled with flowers to the girl, and it's, well, actually, this is the only card that you have reversed. So the way I think this nostalgia card relates to location is that I think there will be certain things about San Diego that are very familiar to you. So where you grew up, like, I don't know, like rural versus suburban, like there's going to be characters to the place where you grew up, right? Characteristics. So whether it be, the climate, the geographics, like forests or the ocean or chaparral or whatever. It could be just like the overall people who live in the location and the way they speak to you when you walk into a grocery store, or the way you might interact with a stranger when you walk into their shop. I think that this card is trying to say that although there might be some trouble, like adjusting, right? Because it's reversed. So there's some blocked energy around this location. So things are going to be a little tougher, either a little tougher, maybe a little longer to settle in. Something about it it's not going to be like straight away. But I feel like there's going to be some sort of really emotional familiarity about San Diego to you, either in terms of like the population of people that you're going to be interacting with, somehow it aligning with where you come from. That's the nostalgia aspect of the card. So I think, so it could be actually, more like if you're going to think about culture shock, I think like San Diego is, what the cards are trying to tell us is that there probably will be a little bit of culture shock, because there's always going to be culture shock when you relocate, but I think it will blend with what you're used to in some degree. Berkeley, there's no indicator in this card of feeling at home, right? Because it's about ideas and transformation. Like, I don't know if it feels good to be a caterpillar stuck in a cocoon and then being birthed into a butterfly. I mean, certainly when babies, like human babies, come out of the womb, they don't look super happy. They're crying and stuff, So like reinventing yourself is not easy, right? So I feel like, this whole thing, not as easy. This is probably easier, even though it's reversed. I feel like on an emotional level, it will be familiar to you. So therefore there's something easier about this location to you. So then, and this might be something that you can like, since I know that you've been on trips to both places. So if there are things that you can, for actually everything I've said, if there's evidence of what I've said that can help you with your pros and cons list or your analysis, these are kind of like the prompts for you to pick those things out. So if that kind of, whatever sort of nostalgic aspects of San Diego there were, pick those out and try to figure out where there's alignment. Okay, I think I babbled enough about that stuff. I'm going to draw 2 more cards for you before we look at the one that you drew over here with your number. I'm just going to draw some advice cards. Like, as you go through this decision-making process, I'm going to draw 2 cards. I'm going to draw like it's like, these are typical tarot spread things. Like, I'm going to draw like an action to take or some advice, and then an action not to take or what to avoid while you're in your decision-making process. So I'm going to put them down here. So this was the action to take. This is the action not to take. Okay. So you got another major arcana card here, the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man is all about well, the story, one of the mythological stories behind this card is of the god Odin from the Norse pantheon. So the god Odin, he is said to have discovered the runes. The runes is the Scandinavian writing system, and basically he is said to have hung himself upside down from Yggdrasil, the tree of life in Scandinavian mythos. In order to kind of like, it's kind of like a forced sensory deprivation, forced asceticism, like, like the way monks would wear a hair shirt or just deprive themselves and all of that sort of stuff, to basically peel away everything, suffer for a while in order to like make it come to the next step. So basically what this is encouraging you to do is it's basically saying like, well, he's the only figure in the tarot too who's upside down. You have to do something that's going to be difficult for you to entirely change your perspective on things. So you're being, since this is an action to take, you're being encouraged to do what this guy is doing. He's hanging himself upside down from a wooden frame in order to gain a completely different perspective. He's hanging by one leg. It is not fun, right? He's not comfy. So, and also the card came up reversed. So it's also telling you this is out of character for you. This is going to be a tough, there's something you can do that is out of character for you. It's going to be a tough slog. It might take longer than you'd like in terms of like maybe the process. But you need to do it, whatever that thing is. So like, when I do readings for people, like where they're trying to make decisions, I tell them to like, the exercise you need to do is to make a pros or cons list. If that's easy for you, that's not what this is talking about. If like you hate making pros and cons lists, maybe this is referring to that. You're going to have to do that anyway. But I think there's something that you hate doing that you're going to need to do to force yourself to have a different perspective. So let's say, like I might say, if I knew that you were an introvert for some reason, and it would like, if you agonized about picking up the phone, like to talk to like people that you don't know well, this might be saying, oh, I need to pick up the phone and call the person I know in San Diego who's actually attending UC San Diego. And even though I don't know them very well, I'm going to have to strike up a telephone conversation, even though I'm more comfortable texting, or whatever, to get the information I need. Only you know what that is. I'm just kind of giving that as an example. I don't know if you're an introvert or an extrovert or whatever. But figure out, what have you been avoiding? What have you been fearing? What's the thing that's going to help you with the decision where you're like, fuck, I don't want to do that. Or like, I'm going to try to do it without doing that, right? That's the thing that you're being told to do here. And since it's a major arcana card, it's a very significant thing. So I would say that the implication here is that this thing that you have to make yourself do, it's like one of those life lessons. So it's going to be like a skill that you're going to like need to hone just for the rest of your life, because it's something you're going to have to do, just being human. And if you want to be successful and not kind of hide from your fears for the rest of your life. So that's the advice to take. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard advice to take. What advice not to take, you got the Three of Cups. The Three of Cups is it's a card of emotions, like what we were saying with it's water, emotions, and whatnot. You have three women who are sort of dancing around in a circle, like wielding these goblets, and just kind of like they're toasting and they're having it. This is the joy card. In the bottom, there's like this whole cornucopia. They're celebrating and whatnot. This is the card. It's telling you what not to do. So there's a couple of ways we can read joy as something that's not to do. So one of the aspects could be like partying, like you just got into two amazing schools. This card is telling you what not to do. Don't rest on your laurels. So even though you did all the hard work to get into these schools in the first place, this decision-making process, don't slack. Like apply yourself. Don't just kind of enjoy your success. It's not time to enjoy success yet. You're still working to make that right decision. The journey is not over yet, is one aspect of this card. Since it's college, I would say the other aspect, like what not to do is like, since social was one of the things that we brought up, right? And I think this is saying de-emphasize the fun aspects in your pros and cons list. So if you're gonna like assign weights to things, like I just remember in California that like the stereotype is like, what's the school, the party school? It's like Humboldt County, Chico, right? Chico State. It has a reputation of being the party school. It's like, yeah, bro, dude, all that stuff. So like, I think the other thing about what not to emphasize, like the other aspect you can look at this card as advice would be, don't privilege the social, fun, joyous party aspects of the schools or the stuff on your pros and cons list that's not related to what we really go to college for. Now, some people might say that I'm going to college to find a mate. I'm going to college to party because I don't care, whatever. I know that in reality, people have that as a goal. I don't think that you do. So it's just kind of saying, don't emphasize that kind of stuff. Don't emphasize the softer stuff. Emphasize the things that really people are really going to college for as a thing to avoid. So anyway, that's the advice. And then lastly, let's just take a look at the card that you chose. Oh, wow. Okay, so you've got the Fool reversed. And so this is actually resonating with this card over here. So the Fool, it's card number 0. And I kind of like, that 0 is kind of like an egg. In fact, in tennis, when you say love, like the score is love, or whatever, love is like a corruption of the French word l'œuf, which means egg. So the Fool is the first card in the sequence of the major arcana where all things are possible. It's kind of like you being an embryo, just like we had back here with the cosmic womb. Like all things are possible. You can see that the Fool is a carefree individual. He has he has like a sack tied to a stick, like an old hobo, and he's got his junk in there, and he's like going off on this journey, and he's not looking where he's going, and he's about to step off a cliff, right? And the dog is kind of nipping at his heels, trying to warn him that, hey, you're about to go off a cliff. What is that? Well, when you're born, it's like you're born into this world crying. You're about to step off a cliff. It's a huge step. And like the Fool being the Fool, it's really it's an indicator of naivete, right? And also the 0, the egg, it's kind of like all things possible. You're about to crack an egg open and whatever. So basically it's just kind of like I feel like it's emphasizing stuff that we've already talked about and things that you already know, that this is a huge step in your life. You're about to take, you're about to step off a huge cliff into like the wild abyss, or the unknown, the huge abyss or whatever. I can't remember the cliche phrase, but the warning to this card, since it's reversed, would be that, it might be even tough. I'm sure you are not like so naive as to think that that college will not be tough. The reversal is a little kind of a warning that things might be a little tougher. Like I think this whole thing, there's stuff that you're not seeing too, because the Fool is looking up. He's not seeing that he's at a precipice, right? So this is also a little bit of a warning to say, hey, what aren't you seeing? And as you put together your pros and cons list, make sure that you do some brainstorming. Meditate if you meditate, or go for a walk in the woods or along the beach or something, and do your whatever you do to think and zone out and really get insight into like wherever you dig things up deep down, because there might be something you're not seeing too, in terms of this decision, since this is really about your decision here. I think that's it. I guess I should come back to the power. Well, I don't know. It's actually, I can't really come back to it. I'll just remind you that it's a thing. Like, as we talked about these things, where do you think, nostalgia, the location, working diligently, speed, where are the things that we kind of talked about where you think that you're going to be in your seat of power on this journey? So just remember that one. And I think that's it. Really good luck in your decision. And you know what? The decision you make will be the right one, right? That's because it has to be. It will be the right one. So good luck, and I hope this was useful.